Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, Part 7. We're here already of our season preview series, looking across the whole roster. Which position group is the Suns' biggest strength? How do they maximize that? And where might their weakness be? Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Tuesday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so click that follow or subscribe button to do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everyday or get locked on to the Phoenix Suns each and every day right here. Joining me, as always, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 910 from the wonderful West Valley. How are we feeling today, Ben Garcia?
So good. We found out the official date of Media Day. We are very close to the Suns season. We're very close to the NBA season. Also, you said thousands. It's like millions that have signed up.
Oh, I missed a few. I didn't realize you were bringing them in like that, Ben. It was thousands when it was just me. Things have changed. We've leveled up. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA when you do to get $20 off your first purchase. I'm literally looking at Gametime. I'll tell you later, too. But hey, right now as well, we love Gametime. Giants, Bengals. I'm going to New York City. Catching Sunday Night Football, if I can make it work. Gametime, of course, going to deliver that awesome price for me. But let's get into our position groups here, Ben. I wanted to do this. It's something that's like maybe, in football or even baseball, it's the way we think about those sports a little more commonly. We don't always think positions in the NBA because you got two guys at each position. But I kind of want to broaden it out. I'm not going to say small forward because, look, it's 2024. We don't talk about basketball that way anymore. But I think of it as somewhat of like what type of player? What kind of general guy are we looking for here, right? So maybe that's a wing, maybe that's a forward, what did you think of when we started to put our heads together and think, what's the Suns' biggest strength from a positional standpoint this season?
It's not close. It's the backcourt. The backcourt, which is just the guards in general. It's not just Bradley Beal and Devin Booker who are the obvious answers, with both guys that have all-star capabilities. Bradley Beal being able to get to the basket. We've talked about that. We did a whole episode on that. Devin Booker's ability to be a bona fide star in this league. You look at Tyus Jones as well, but there's also a guy back there in Monte Morris who we were talking a ton about before the Tyus Jones signing had happened. He shows up. That's another guy as well that's going to take care of the ball for the Suns team. Offensively, I think they're going to be obviously very good. It's that extra layer of basketball knowledge that I just really like in this team. I literally have a photo of me at the Final Four in 2017 or 2018 with Monte Morris when he was on Iowa State. I've been such a fan of this guy since then. He is mature. I think he's going to be a really good backup point guard. One of the things about him, he's a great catch and shoot kind of guy as well. And then his assist to turnover ratio, the only one it's not better than, if I'm not mistaken, is Tyus Jones. The capabilities of this team to have not just skilled basketball players, but knowledgeable and smart basketball players that can get the ball where it needs to go, I don't think it's close. In fact, it's the runaway favorite on this team. I will be floored unless you have this galaxy brain basketball knowledge idea I'm just not sufficient enough. I think it's just by far the guard play.
Yeah, I sort of went, like that off-guard spot, whatever you want to say. It's funny, though, because it's like you're teetering toward wing, but you probably wouldn't say wing, and I think that's kind of what's funny about this whole conversation is it's really a matter of how these guys are used together to what we would even call them. But when I look at Booker, Beal, and Allen, it doesn't get much better than that. I know I said I don't think of it in terms of positions like shooting guard, but that's because those two of those guys or more are going to be on the court at all times. So however you want to describe it, that is clearly the strength of this team. And, I hate to do this, but it leads me back to how crazy it is that this team is not a great three-point shooting team. Historically in the NBA, that position was the one that even in the 70s got a green light to take perimeter jumpers. The Suns have 3 really good players at that spot who all have that skill set, and somehow they're not getting the most out of it. They even had Eric Gordon last year, and then you could put 4 in the mix there, and they weren't able to get the job done. So you're absolutely right. And can I read you who the guards were the second game of last season? Just to illustrate this.
That's what I was going to say. But yes, do it. Yes, read it off.
So remember, Booker gets hurt game 1, right? So we're talking game 2, Lakers on the road, loss. Remember, they score 11 in the fourth. KD just gets stomped because they're loading up on him. So Gordon played. Gordon started. Allen started, did not play well. And then off the bench, Jordan Goodwin. That's the entirety of the guards. Okogie had a little bit of run. Yuta Watanabe played 15 minutes. Nasir Little, shout out, just got a contract with the Miami Heat. He's back in the league. He got 13 minutes. But man, we might not even see Monte Morris play early in the season if there's not minutes for him, and he's better than everybody I just listed off.
But what you just said there is we might not see him play, and that was probably an option when he came to the Suns. Clearly, this Tyus Jones thing was like weeks in the works. But the ability to have options. Last year at this time, including my dumb self, everyone's singing the praises of Jordan Goodwin. You don't need a traditional point guard. You got a guy that is the hybrid bulldog, Javon Carter-like, although clearly smaller guard that's going to come in here. He's Bradley Beal's guy. You can't trade him. The Wizards are kicking themselves. You have Monte Morris too now. You can afford, you can never afford to lose a star or superstar player. Kevin Durant's out of the lineup. That's just going to hurt, and you're going to have to figure it out. I call that treading water. Same with Devin Booker. But if Bradley Beal goes out, I'm more than fine with Monte Morris coming in and leading the second group right behind Grayson Allen and Tyus Jones. This team has to get better production from their guards shooting the basketball. You had mentioned it last year. I remember doing a video specifically over at Fox Sports. I was doing a hit for Fox 10, and I remember talking specifically about how good this Suns team was going to be because of how many good three-point shooters they had that they added to this team. 2 of them of which I believe is Yuta Watanabe that shot 50% from the corner. I couldn't remember who else it was that shot 50% from the corner, and I was like, this team's going to be awesome. It's just going to be driving kick nation. I don't think, and I'm sure maybe this is lead us to another conversation, but I don't think the Suns players were the issue with them not hitting threes. I think it was coaching. So I have a higher standard for that this year for them. What about you?
100%. And I think, look, I know we are kind of maybe beating a dead horse. I feel like I bring it up every episode, but there is just going to be so much value this year in, look, could Monte Morris flame out? Sure. Could Grayson have a slightly worse season than he did last year? Could Tyus Jones, some of the slight nitpicks we had when we talked about him yesterday, come to pass? And maybe, I have a hard time imagining this group being bad, but could they be a little worse than we think? Sure. There is just such a higher floor when we're talking about veteran players, right? I mean, Jordan Goodwin, I drank the Kool-Aid too. I believed. I bought it. You know what I mean? I still, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up in the league in 3 years. He's just not ready yet. But I thought he was. Point is, it wasn't a big shock that he flamed out because he's 25, 24, whatever he is. It would be a much bigger shock if Tyus Jones was awful. That's just not going to happen, right? So whether it's three-point shooting, which we are in alignment on, or just the overall fit and consistency, it's just going to be night and day. And I think that guard spot is it's not going to be highlighted any more strongly than right there. But I have something to throw at you back to my kind of smaller wing 2 guard, the Book Beal Grayson group here, that I think is going to shock you. I'll throw it at you coming up on the other side. First, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy any ticket. Gametime has a new feature making them even better called Gametime Picks. Makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. They filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Like I said, I have been sifting through Bengals at Giants, October 13th. I really don't want to spend a ton of money. I'm already paying a bunch to get out there, visit my buddy. We're trying to have a good time. We don't want it to be anything too crazy. But Gametime had me covered, just like they always do. They threw the best deals at the top. I don't care where I sit. I just want to be in the building, and I don't want to break the bank. And that is what they helped me out with. Yeah, it's in the end zone, 30 rows up. I'm going to have a blast either way. Gametime said, here's what you need then. Value, good price. There you go. And I said, thank you, Gametime. You're absolutely right. They have their Gametime picks, throwing it right up there. Not only the best prices within an event, but what events you should look at. If you're just open-minded, you just want to go out and do something one weekend, just open the app and it'll just say, hey, this is just a great deal. Just try it out. Come do this thing. And you say, okay. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Alrighty, Ben, let's keep it rolling. I'm going to throw something at you. And people are going to pull their hair out, and you might as well. You have a hat, but maybe you'll ditch the hat and start ripping it out. I have a hard time breaking from the belief that if I'm sitting here telling you Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, that's the Suns' strength. Keep them on the court together. Try it again. I know it feels like the definition of an insanity to try something that didn't work again and hope that there's going to be some better, different thing. I can throw numbers at you. I can throw basketball talk at you to explain why I think that it can fit. But again, I just come back to they're the best players on the team. They're 3 of the 5 best players on the team, in my opinion. We'll see what Tyus Jones looks like. I believe that as of September 23rd. It's not a perfect fit. We already disagree sometimes about the Book-Beal dynamic. Give me another one. I want them all out there.
You want to run out a lineup of Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Yusuf Nurkic. Just so I'm like that,
which was the Suns starting lineup most of last season, right?
So it was one of the best starting lineups statistically when they actually played together.
I don't necessarily think I want to start it, but I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to flush it down the toilet and say it didn't work. That's it.
You have to find a place for Grayson Allen. You really do. And I think that's going to be one of the most difficult things for Budenholzer to do this year. Grayson Allen was incredibly effective, shot nearly 50% from 3 last year. But I want to just bring down the temperature for Grayson Allen just a little bit for Suns fans. There is no bleeping way he shoots 48, 49% from 3 again this year. He's going to regress. Is that at 42%? Is that even at 38%, which is still a great three-point shooter? It's just not maybe 48%. They still need to find a way to run sets for him, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all, as long as it's not something that they're doing constantly on the court. Maybe it's a matchups thing. Maybe they're trying to get out in transition like we talked about before. I just don't want Bradley Beal running the point guard. Yes, he is a willing soldier. Yes, he has shown that he will do what he has to do to get this team to win, but he's just not that great at it. Personally, I'd rather Devin Booker running the point guard position than Bradley Beal, but I don't think Bradley Beal is as good as an off-ball player than Booker is, so it just doesn't work out. Just because they are the best players doesn't mean you throw them all out there at the same time. It's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. I don't hate the idea in spurts, but I do think we tried it last year. It didn't work. Let's not get bullied again defensively. Let's try something else. Although I don't think you're insane. There are going to be times the Suns are going to be forced to do that, especially when they're trying to get back into a game. And it might work. But overall, I do think that should be a closer to a last resort thing than the first thing that the Suns do. Which is why I'll keep beating the drum of I think Grayson Allen's going to be the odd man out on this team. But again, story for another day.
Yeah. Look, we are going to, it might not be a story for another day because I think we're going to close out here with some positional weaknesses. And, inevitably you get to, hey, let's trade a strength for a weakness, right? So we'll talk through that, I think, to close things out. But 2 counterpoints momentarily on that point before I throw another potential positional group strength at you, because I don't want to just agree and say, okay, it's the guards, that's it. So I have one more, but counterpoint. Number one, Book is, I think, the point guard in a lineup like that when push comes to shove. I hear you. Beal maybe is most comfortable with the ball in his hands, but we've talked through some of the shot diet changes that he already went through last year, and I think the best version of this team is clearly not with the ball in Beal's hands. He's probably third in that pecking order, so he needs to adjust to that whether he likes it or not, and Book will be the guy. Even if Tyus Jones is on the court late in games, a lot of possessions will still start and end with Booker or Durant handling the ball, right? So that's that, and I think, that makes it, no matter who it is, that needs to get better. So therefore, whether it's Tyus or Grayson, I don't care. Counterpoint number 2, yoked Grayson. Grayson bulked up. We don't know. He added 50 to 75 to 100 pounds or whatever this offseason.
75 pounds.
I don't know. I mean, look, muscle watch is a big deal in NBA circles, as it is in every sport. So I'm not willing to put limits on what Grayson can do. Maybe he's about to become the Luka stopper. I don't know. So if he's better and can guard up a little bit, in all seriousness, he did get bigger. That clearly was an emphasis. Just like Nurk seems to have gotten a little smaller, maybe that helps that group fit together better than we did see it last year. Which
is so funny, because if you asked me which two I would want, like at their body types, I would switch those two. I'd want Yusuf Nurkic bigger and Grayson Allen a little bit skinnier, because he's a finesse
There's a reason
player.
That's like their natural body type, right? Like maybe stick with what's worked. Yeah.
Now, I remember watching your swole Grayson Allen video. It was actually my onboarding, like instructional video when I showed up here at Locked On.
Great.
And we were just having fun with it, poking fun. It was a great video. And I thought it was a great subject to talk about during the summertime. I thought it was great. Grayson Allen, he could start benching 500 pounds. He's still 6'4".
Yeah.
If anything, it's still, and that's the obvious counterpoint. He's listed at 6'4", which means he's probably 6'3", because we all know that everyone lies about their height just a little bit. Grayson Allen has the potential to be a stopper, a pretty good stopper on some pretty good point guards. I believe the ship has sailed on Grayson Allen ever being a lockdown defender, and I know you know this, but it's just to add
Agreed.
It's just to add nuance to the conversation. And there is you can add as much weight as you want. I can get super jacked, and I could want to go do my Mighty Mouse like I do all the time at the gym and pick out the biggest guy and want to go guard him because I have little man syndrome at 5'9", but it's not going to do anything. I could bench 500 pounds. That dude's still going to shoot over me. So because of that, we'll get to it. I'm assuming now that will be something that's going to make Grayson Allen the odd man out. And just to kind of switch the conversation a little bit to this as well. Not only do I think the guards are the Phoenix Suns' best position group by far, Brendon, I think it's their only strong position group. Okay.
The one I was going to throw at you is center.
Don't do it. Don't you dare.
And it's not.
Don't you dare.
Look, there's a difference between that their center position is better than other teams. I'm not making that case. Yeah. Within this roster,
there's a certain player that I'm worried about is going to come up.
Being pretty stable. I think the one that I would pick, the one problem that I have or what holds me back from saying that is I don't love the lack of versatility in the center position. Nurk and Plumlee, it's nice to have two players that you're not having to adjust, because this was a big issue. Yes, Eubanks just had a bad season. He may not be an NBA caliber player. That's kind of its own thing. He also was just so different than Nurk, where depending on who was out there, it's like this massive adjustment. So it's good to have that, but it might be too similar now, and I'm not ready to make the case, so Iguodala is going to break in there. And so they're kind of stuck with, I think, a lot of good options, maybe not a great option, and maybe too much overlap. That's kind of my feel on that spot. But I think to have three good players, that's a strength, in my opinion.
I don't really look at the center position as a lack of versatility and that being a weakness. On this team, I do just kind of want my big men to be traditional big men. I don't even really like the idea of Jusuf Nurkic going out and shooting 3 threes a night. Maybe every now and then he gets open. It's nice to make the defense honest. You can't just leave him alone in the corner. But I think Jusuf Nurkic was still the most underrated Sun last year. Talked about it before. He's not that bad of a defender. At times, he can be a little nauseating at the rim. But I'm never going to freak out at Jusuf Nurkic for not being an elite offensive player that has Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones. I'm just not worried about it. And so I don't mind the Drew Eubanks, Jusuf Nurkic thing. I'm happy that they got a guy that basically does what Jusuf Nurkic does, just at a great value Walmart level. And you'd mentioned the Oso Iguodaro thing. If Oso can be a I'm not even asking for a playoff caliber player. I think that is asking extremely too much of a second rounder. If he can come in and play some small ball 5, some really small ball 5 in stretches, maybe against the Kings, that's obviously a fantastic draft pick. But there's your versatility right there. There's a guy right there that can run the court with you and is a young guy that seems to be very knowledgeable and a pretty good defender as well. So
I'm just not sure all three will play. So that's, most nights it's going to be Nurkic and Plumlee. I kind of talked myself in circles there. My point was like they have less versatility this year, but they just have 2 good players. Whereas last year they had quote unquote versatility with Nurkic and Eubanks being different types of guys, but one of them just wasn't good. So we'll see how that shapes up. I think the stability and just, again, a vet, as I keep ringing the bell on, can be a big help. But, I think it's going to be the guards. I think that goes without saying. But let's turn the page to the weak points on the roster. I have one for sure in mind, and get to that trade that Ben has been teasing here. Coming up after one more quick break. First, today's show is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet right now at FanDuel.com. I don't really want to talk about how the Cardinals game just became a little more tough based on how the Commanders just looked. So I'm going to pull us over to the WNBA, where the Phoenix Mercury are playing Game 2 against the Minnesota Lynx. They had a narrow comeback, just barely fall short in Game 1. They are 8.5-point dogs in Game 2. It is an elimination game. We'll see if Taurasi can get up for that and make things interesting again. Fun one to throw some money on. Either way, you're getting that $200 straight to your account to get the fun going, all at FanDuel.com. All right, Ben, let's close it out. To me, the biggest weakness, the forward spot. It's Kevin Durant, and it's who else? We've gotten our imaginations going about Ryan Dunn. We've bickered about Bol. Those are maybes at best. And even if they hit, they're not playoff starters. That this team does not have any other solid, proven, guaranteed player who's bigger than like 6'5", and smaller than 7 feet, who can do stuff that the modern NBA demands every team to do. It can't just be KD. That's clearly their weakness and where they need to upgrade, right?
The wing position, especially the depth, is awful. Kevin Durant makes up for so much. This team went from having too many wings. If you remember years ago, it was like TJ Warren, Josh Jackson. I think there was even an overlap between Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, something of that caliber. And at that point, they just had a surplus of wings, and they just had to start giving them away. The Suns have no depth. If I'm being fair, I have to just assume Ryan Dunn isn't going to be a playoff caliber player this year. Maybe he does at some point. I can't bank on that. The wing position is so bad, and it was the Suns' glaring biggest hole of this team. In my opinion, the biggest hole on this Suns team, because I didn't think they were going to get a guy like Tyus Jones. It was the wing depth. It was the big man position, so just height in general, and then their point guard. I thought that in that order was what it was supposed to be. Now Tyus Jones elevates that because I didn't think they were going to get anyone that great. But this team, they can take themselves to a championship favorite. I've mentioned a Dorian Finney-Smith. a PJ Washington-esque level player where the Suns can still give up that first-round pick, which I'm more than willing to do, for a solid wing and a Grayson Allen or whatever it may be, but you have a surplus at the guard position now, and Grayson Allen's the odd man out because he shot nearly 50% from three last year. He's a capable defender. He's not exactly tiny, and everyone would take on that Grayson Allen contract right now. It's not a bad contract at all. So the wing depth needs to be addressed. I assume it will be. They have those second-round picks that they can play around with as well. And it needs to be addressed before the trade deadline or right around then. Otherwise, the Suns are going to be staring in the same hole that they had last year in the playoffs, where they go up against a Jaden McDaniels or a Luka Doncic or someone that they need to throw at that player. And Kevin Durant can't really do that anymore. Every other night basis. He just can't. So that's where I'm at there.
All right, I kind of want to just throw some names out here. Get our. We haven't touched trades. We're 7 days into this. We've been holding back. We need to just talk about trades. It's the NBA. We got to just dive in here finally. So I think you've mentioned this name at least once since you started here with us, Ben. Dorian Finney-Smith. How would that solve their problem? Do they need multiple players here? How bad is it? Would that do it for you?
Dorian Finney-Smith, I'm not joking. Maybe I'm so blinded from what he did to the Suns in the 2022 NBA playoffs where he couldn't miss and he was shutting down Chris Paul and helping collapse on Devin Booker on doubles and taking him away. Granted, he needed help with that. But Dorian Finney-Smith would elevate this team on the short list of what should be NBA. I think that they're just as good as the Timberwolves. When you add Tyus Jones and Dorian Finney-Smith to this team, I think they're just as good as... I think they're the best team in the Western Conference. If they add a caliber, depth, wing piece. Because if you are rolling out a roster in the playoffs of Yusuf Nurkic, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Tyus Jones, Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't even care after that. Those are the guys that are going to play most of the night anyways. That team would be awesome. That team would have almost everything filled. What would be their glaring weakness? Aside from the fact that they don't have a great center, how many teams do? Joel Embiid's one. He never really shows up in the playoffs. Nikola Jokic is one. Anthony Davis is one, but he's Anthony Davis and is the most inconsistent player in the playoffs that we've seen. Rudy Gobert gets played off the floor in every playoff series outside of the one where he played against the Suns. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, it's I don't know how likely it is they could get a guy like him. But man,
well, Dorian Brooklyn's selling.
They're selling
14.9. He fits in. I mean, I'm surprised he's still on the team, frankly. So, $14.9 million. He's a little old. I guess the one thing I would say is, he's only 6'7". So, it's
really
not.
He's a long player though. He's long
and strong, for his frame. So yeah, I would love him. I'm not trying to pick nits. I guess just there's a reason that those big wings, somebody like Kevin Durant or Jason Tatum or players like that, even PJ Washington, frankly, are so valuable, and they're not always available. But Finney-Smith is about as good as you're going to get. Let's go a touch down from there though, because that's a high-end one. How about Matisse Thybulle? Not a high-volume shooter, but he's improved his jump shot a lot since he got to Portland. He can at least knock down open, corner threes now, and one of the best guard on-ball defenders in the league. Maybe doesn't have the physicality and strength, but, I mean, that'd make him better.
Yes, Matisse Thybulle would make them better. Would I want to give up Grayson Allen for it, though? Would I want to do that?
Tough part.
Because Grayson Allen, I'm just going to be... Yes, Matisse Thybulle fits this team better than Grayson Allen, but I'm not really in the business of giving up... I'm not really in the business of giving up a good player for a player that might fit this team a little better. But yes, I get it. He made his jumper a little bit better. I'm just of the belief that's a little bit easier to improve your jumper when you're playing in Portland and games don't really matter that much.
Yeah, fair.
I just put more into Grayson Allen. That's why I'm so into the, DFS or nothing, because that's a guy that I've seen him be
great option.
It's not a lot. You want to know why? Because I say the Suns' biggest weakness is a wing guard. 20 out of the 30 plus NBA teams that we have, half of all of them,
everybody, and even the teams that have them want more, right?
Every
the Celtics
team wants a wing.
That's their strength, and they said, "Yeah, we'll take Drew Holiday." It's not like they said no to the opportunity to get another one, even if that meant sacrificing kind of like the traditional structure of their team. They just said, "Yeah, we'll play 4 wings and a center, and we'll win." And they did. They won a championship pretty easily. So, yeah, every team needs it. That's probably part of why Brooklyn is not rushing into a deal with somebody like Dorian Finney-Smith, just because raise the price. See how much you can get. Tomorrow's price in February will be a lot better than today's even if there's a lot of teams desperate now. So, I agree. It's probably going to be tough to get him.
I would love, and anyone that has, made it this far into the video and hearing this yapping, I would love to hear everyone's answer to this. But would you trade Grayson Allen and the 2031 pick for Dorian Finney-Smith? But let me set the stage, because you're not doing this if the team isn't a real contender. In early February, they're the 3rd seed. They're 4 games out of the first. They're 5 games out of the number 1 seed. They clearly have a hole at wing. Kevin Durant kind of needs a blow. This is your chance. Are you doubling down, or are you holding on to that 2031 pick? Grayson Allen and the 2031 pick, which is just as valuable in this trade as Grayson Allen, for Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah, I think I needed maybe a little something back. Maybe it's like a swap, or it's something. The salaries are really close, so you can't really get another player. But I think Finney-Smith's not quite the caliber of player by himself.
Wow.
Plus giving up Grayson to do that.
I'm doing it.
Nah.
I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. And we're only doing it if that's where the Suns are at. If the Suns are the 3rd seed, and all they got to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah, but you're not guaranteeing yourself a title, though.
No,
it's like
guaranteed in this league. But
yeah,
you want to
so
do
that's
what
tough.
The Diamondbacks did last year and not be guaranteed a championship, and you get to the World Series and you realize, oh shoot, we should have got another pitcher. You do not want to be in the playoffs for the Suns, and whatever happens, and you're like, man, we're in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, and we didn't realize we're going to be this good. But now we have a kid that's in 6th grade right now, prepping to be on our team 8 years from now.
Here's how I would put it. I think that they can do better, and that's why I'm hesitant now. If you fast forwarded me to February, better than that value. That's not great value. That would be like you're giving up a lot. You're losing, quote unquote, you're losing that trade. So I guess I'm just optimistic that if you have a pick like that, that they can probably either get a better player than Finney-Smith, or use that to not have to give up Grayson, and maybe you give up Nurkic instead. I would just hope they could do better. But if you were to tell me, we get to February, whatever the deadline is next year, and that's the best they can do, yes or no, decide right now, I'd probably go yes. I probably would go for it.
This would be my final argument for it, for overpaying for Dorian Finney-Smith, which I understand I'm doing. What did P.J. Washington do for that Mavericks team last year? Do they go as far? Did they go to the finals without P.J. Washington? No. And that's a guy who as well as talent was lost in Charlotte. He comes to the Mavericks and he figures it out. So, yeah.
So that's a good example, maybe, right? They gave up an unprotected pick swap for him. Maybe the Suns could do something like that. That complicates because now you owe a swap and you don't know how your picks are going to factor in, and it gets messy. Maybe that's a workaround, kind of like I was saying, to get closer on the value. But yeah, you got to do stuff like that when you're that close. When you have a Luka Doncic, when you have a Kevin Durant, a Devin Booker, you lose trades if it gets you closer to a championship. So we are on the same page. And like I said, I only got through 2 names, Finney-Smith and Thibault. There's not really like Corey Kispert, I guess, in Washington.
No, I'm not.
That's not really a wing. That's really just like another Grayson who's like 2 inches bigger. That's not really much difference. So yeah, those guys are few and far between. They got to find their target like they did with Royce O'Neal and upgrade that spot if they want to get closer to a title. That'll wrap us up. Another question to go tomorrow. Hit follow, subscribe if you haven't already. Become an everydayer as we wrap up our season preview series next week. Ben mentioned Media Day Monday, so we'll talk through that. It's here, guys. Come along for the ride. We'll see you tomorrow.